record.
Hi, welcome to ThoughtConnected and our first associate insight. My name is John Munro and I'm the owner-founder of ThoughtConnect. Today I'll be speaking to Kate Russell from Adelaide Conflict Management, and Kate has been an associate with ThoughtConnect since February 2017. She's also a point associate with ThoughtConnect, involved in the expansion and strategy of the ThoughtConnect group. Kate literally has decades of experience in conflict and business coaching. Hi Kate, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, John.
To start with, can you just tell me a little bit about your background?
Yes, so I've got a background that has been around the edges of law. So I ran a community legal centre from the age of about 24 at the Parks for a number of years. Then I went to Legal Aid and I set up the child support unit at Legal Aid, and then I left there and have been self-employed pretty much for the last 18 years, and I've done some contract work for government. I've sat on the Social Security Appeals Tribunal and the Public Housing Appeal Panel, and I became an accredited mediator in 2006. I'm an accredited trainer as well, and I've worked around a lot of people dealing with high levels of conflict, particularly in the area of child support, but I've also workplace mediation, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, really important work. So how did you get started in your own business?
Well, look, I did some contract work for government that I could only do as an independent person. So that really opened the door for me. And I always wanted to do other things. So I used the opportunity to look for ways in which I could exploit my skills. And I really enjoyed that. So part of that also included being a filmmaker for a period of time and producing training films, because I get very frustrated by training films being boring. I can't deal with that. Got a bit of an artsy background. So it was the door was opened and I took the opportunity and ran with it.
So why is what you do so important? Why are you so passionate about it?
I'm very passionate about people having a voice. And part of that comes from my own background. So I came from a family that, like many, that was incredibly dysfunctional. But one of the things that happened during my childhood was that my dad developed his skills. He went from being a priest to a psychotherapist. And in that process, he provided us with an opportunity to think quite differently about problems. And he recognised in himself that he had not been listening to people and he had not been curious, and he was putting people into boxes and labelling them, and that really stayed with me. And I truly believe people need a voice. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the most powerful voice. They say extraordinary things. If people feel heard and valued, then conflict will diminish immediately. Conflict often comes about because people feel frustrated and they don't feel valued. So I think there's plenty of scope for us to improve the way in which we work with people.
What are some of the common myths that you come across in relation to conflict and coaching and business coaching and what you're doing?
I think one of the common myths is that I like conflict, that I go out of my way to seek conflict, and I don't like conflict. I'm not scared of conflict as I probably once was. But I think that there's this myth about conflict being bad. I think conflict is just information. It's telling you there's a problem, and if we're not scared of it and we confront it and we have a look at it and we unpack it, then we can usually identify what the problem is and we can deal with that. What we can't deal with is the yelling and the abuse and the mistreatment of people. That's something that can't be tolerated. So I think that for me is one of the myths, that the conflict is bad. I think conflict is just information, and sometimes conflict is really, really important. Like we live in a country where people have the right to speak, and we have elections, and people need to argue about important issues so that we can develop and grow our skills and work out what is the right way to go. But other times conflict is about personal issues, and often that conflict is we take it on personally. And generally, the information and the thing we've taken on personally is not our stuff either. It's that the reaction to a situation. It's often got nothing to do with us at all. So I think there's some of the myths that come out in business.
So you need to open it up, get it out, and start to talk about it. So similar to mental health challenges and things like that. So it's not just conflict that you work with. What are some of the other things you do for your clients?
Well, I think conflict is often just a starting point. So often I get called in because there has been a conflict situation. But what we're really looking at is what is the culture of an organisation. Because if you're a culture where incivility and inappropriate behaviours are tolerated, then you're going to get more of that behaviour. So I coach leaders and managers about how to work with their team to deal with those issues and to go forward in a positive manner, and looking for people doing good rather than bad, not focusing all the energy on people making mistakes, focusing energy on what's going well for those people. I don't believe people go out of their way to underperform or make mistakes, but they are more likely to underperform or make mistakes if they're being criticised or micromanaged. So I very much work with teams and with leaders about how to create a healthier, more positive workplace culture so there is less conflict.
Yeah, so that's an important point to reconfirm, that it's not just fixing the issue, it's then fixing the environment and working in the environment so these issues don't happen again. Otherwise, you're just putting band-aids over issues as they rise up.
That's very much the case. And I think, I've got a background in mediation, but I do think mediation is a significant step in the right direction for dispute resolution. I very much value mediation, but I do think it is a band-aid. And so any workplace I go into, if I do a mediation, I will always be working with management, because management have, in some shape, manner or form, contributed towards that dispute happening in the first place.
Yeah. So to open it up even a little bit more for people who will be watching, can you just run through how a client one-on-one would go? What are the sorts of things that you would talk about? A brief overview or a run through of what an appointment with a client would look like.
When I'm working with clients, one of the things that we do is we unpack problem areas. And so working with people, I would go to we go to a dispute, or we go to an issue moment, and then I apply conflict coaching skills to that. And what that means is that we unpack the emotion. So emotions are generally just our reaction to a situation. They're not facts, they're just our response to a situation. So if we take the emotion out of that situation and we can work out why somebody responded in the way they did and why we responded in the way we did, then it becomes an intellectual exercise, and that takes the sting out of it. And then suddenly it's a lot easier to look at what the real problem is. So I'm very much working with people about what are their values in that moment, what do they need in that moment, and then, if possible, stepping into the shoes of the other party and trying to think from their point of view, when this happened, what were their values in the moment? What were their needs, and how did they want to be perceived? And when you break it down like that, then suddenly you go, oh, look, it's just we're different, and we just responded to this situation, this circumstance. So it's very much taking the emotion out of conflict situations, but then working with the managers about how do we call out, how do we call out inappropriate behaviour when we see it? What's the next step? How do we do that in a safe way and make everybody feel safe in giving feedback immediately? And it's important that you give feedback straight away, because it shows that you care, but also there's a duty of care to make sure that people work in a safe workplace.
Yeah, powerful meetings. So you've been in business for a number of years now. What do you think is your unique skill set that's helped you to become successful in your own business?
I think it's that ability to listen and not to judge people. I've been very privileged in all of the work that I've done in my life, that I've worked with people from all walks of life. And so my ability to speak to anybody, it doesn't matter who you are, I can I can talk to you, because we're all dealing with similar stuff. So I think my skill set of being able to communicate with anybody about their stuff is one of my skill sets. And I think the other thing that I'm very comfortable doing is to be vulnerable and to tell my own personal stories, to connect with other people, to make it safe for them to tell their stories. Because once we start that communication, there's a huge amount of trust that comes from sharing personal stories. And then we can feel some of that pain and move on.
So connection and intimacy is always an important part of what you're doing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's lots of good things about being in business, but there's also the downside as well. What's your best tip for someone who is struggling to take their idea forward as a consultant or a freelancer or a micro business?
I think the first thing is to sound out your idea with some people that you trust, and get clear about what it is that your business looks like. I think for me, my business has changed over the years as I've grown and developed. And I know that the clearer I get, the easier it is to be in business, because I know what my niche is and I know what my target audience is. It's when I'm vague that I'm selling to everybody and I've got nobody buying. So being clear and being as niche as you can possibly be is very powerful.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Kate, please tell the audience how they can find you and how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so my website's AdelaideConflictManagement.com.au, and all my contact details are there. That's probably the easiest way to get me. And what I really like doing is meeting with somebody and having, I call it a conflict strategy session, but just getting an idea about what's going on, what is the culture, what are the issues. Because the lovely thing about being an outsider is that I can see things that sometimes when you're in the middle, you can't see. You just can't see the forest for the trees. So very happy to talk to people about sort of unpacking what's going on for them. And one of the things I think that's really exciting about doing that is that most of us are working in really important, difficult work. And it's valuing that, and it's an opportunity to get some feedback about what are the good things that you're doing. Because usually they outweigh the bad things. It's just the bad things that take up a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, that's great. Just finally, you've been an important part of ThoughtConnect now for over 12 months. Why did you get involved in ThoughtConnect, and why are you involved now?
I got involved with ThoughtConnect because I recognise that people need people. And one of the lovely things about ThoughtConnect is that there's a number of people. We're all entrepreneurs, small business. We're trying to find our feet. For a lot of the people in ThoughtConnect, we have had jobs and then we're starting our own business, and that's really scary. And so to be surrounded by people who are going through the same process as you is rewarding. And so we can nurture each other, we can support each other, we can share experiences, we can share skills. There's the collaboration. There's just a lot of things that make it very positive to be in the group. So I'm very much very pleased to be part and proud to be part of ThoughtConnect group, because the people in that room are dynamic and brilliant and caring. And I think what's been great about ThoughtConnect is it attracts people that do care enormously, and they want to share the wealth of experience they have with the wider community, and we're all finding our feet about how's the best way to go and do that.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks very much for your insights today, and thanks very much for being part of ThoughtConnect. If you didn't get Kate's full details, you can find Kate on my website, which is ThoughtConnect.com.au, and my phone number and contact details are on there as well. Thanks very much for listening to ThoughtConnect.com, and we will chat later. Thanks, Kate.
No worries. Thanks so much, John.